Everyone is running from something. But what if the thing you're avoiding is the part of you that holds your healing? Carl Jung called it the shadow, and until you face it, it will run your life in silence. Stay, because what you're about to hear isn't comfortable, but it might just set you free.
It starts in childhood, a moment, a look, a silence. Something happens, something your nervous system wasn't ready to handle, and your mind does the only thing it knows how to do. It hides the pain. It locks it away. And you grow up thinking you've moved on, but that pain is still there, and it's still moving you. Carl Jung believed that the parts of ourselves we repress, the parts we push away and forget, don't disappear. They go underground. They become the unconscious. And from there, they continue to shape everything. Your choices, your relationships, your fears. You're not running from the world. You're running from a version of you that never got to heal. This isn't weakness, it's survival. But survival is not the same as freedom. And one day, you wake up exhausted, confused, detached, and you wonder why nothing ever really feels like you. It's because you've spent so long being everything but that. The truth? You can't outrun your shadow, and the longer you try, the more control it gains. The only way out is in. You think you're making decisions, but most of the time you're reacting. Reacting to old wounds, buried memories, hidden fears. Jung believed that what you refuse to face in yourself doesn't just disappear, it controls you from the dark. Every argument you repeat, every pattern you relive, every person you attract, it's not random. It's the unconscious speaking. It's your shadow trying to get your attention. It whispers through anxiety, explodes through anger, numbs through depression. And until you name it, it owns you. But naming it is hard. It means sitting in silence. It means asking, what am I pretending not to feel? It means choosing truth over comfort. And that's something most people never do. Because the unconscious doesn't speak in words. It speaks in symbols, in dreams, in breakdowns. The moment you turn toward it, the moment you listen, things begin to shift. Slowly, quietly. And one day, you realize you're no longer being controlled. You're finally becoming conscious.
You've spent years thinking something is wrong with you, that you're too much or not enough. But Jung would say, you're not broken, you're fragmented. You've split yourself into acceptable and unacceptable pieces, and now you're living a half-life. Think of yourself as a house, but you only live in 2 or 3 rooms. The rest, the rage, the grief, the desire, the voice, are all locked behind doors you were taught never to open, but they're still part of the house. And until you meet them, your life will feel incomplete. Integration doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means becoming whole. It means acknowledging the parts you silenced, repressed, or rejected, and offering them a seat at the table. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming what was lost there. You don't need fixing. You need reconnection with your inner child, your shadow, your voice, yourself. You think you've moved on. You don't cry anymore. You don't talk about it. You've built a life. But deep inside, that pain is still breathing. And Jung warned us, what you repress returns. It doesn't fade, it waits, and it grows. Repression is like pushing a beach ball underwater. It takes energy, focus, tension, and eventually it comes back up, often at the worst moment, in your relationships, your health, your silence. You don't know why you're angry or numb or distant, but something inside does. The problem isn't that you feel too much, it's that you never felt it when you needed to. You buried the pain, and now it leaks through the cracks of your life. You can't outrun what you refuse to grieve. True healing begins with permission. Permission to feel, to weep, to scream, not to break, but to release. Because buried pain doesn't die, but it can be transformed.
Everyone wears a mask. The funny one, the strong one, the peacemaker, the achiever. Jung called it the persona, the version of you shaped for the world. It was meant to help you belong, but somewhere along the way, it became who you thought you were. You wore it so long, you forgot what your real face looks like. And now, you wonder why you feel disconnected, why relationships feel hollow, why success feels empty. It's because the mask protected you, but it also cut you off from yourself. The mask isn't evil, it was necessary. It kept you safe when you were small and powerless. But you're not that person anymore, and what once saved you is now suffocating you. Taking it off is terrifying. You'll feel naked, vulnerable. But beneath the mask is your voice, your truth, your power. And no mask can give you that back, only you can. The emotions you didn't express, they didn't die. The rage you swallowed, the grief you ignored, the shame you silenced, they transformed. Jung taught that the shadow isn't just a psychological theory, it's a force, a living system inside you that adapts, evolves, and eventually takes form. And when it does, it doesn't ask permission. It crashes through your life, disguised as self-sabotage, addiction, emotional numbness, anxiety. You think you're fine, but your behavior starts speaking a different language, the language of the denied self. You don't get to choose whether or not you have a shadow. You only choose whether or not you'll face it. Because if you don't, it will speak through your reactions, your breakdowns, your quiet moments of despair when no one is watching. The chaos isn't coming from outside. It's the result of internal disconnection, of pretending you're less complex, less. You call them annoyances. You say, that just gets under my skin. But Jung would ask, why? Why does that person, that tone, that situation provoke that reaction? Because it's never about the surface, it's about the shadow underneath it. Triggers are messages, they point to wounds, and the bigger the reaction, the older the pain. You're not just angry at what was said, you're angry at what it reminds you of. A betrayal, a childhood moment, a time when you felt powerless, unseen, unloved. Most people avoid their triggers, they blame others, they numb out. But Jungian Rook invites you to lean in, to ask, what is this emotion trying to protect? What part of me is hurting? Because your triggers aren't random, they're roadmaps. You're not weak for having triggers, you're wounded, and every trigger is a doorway, not into rage, but into healing. You don't cry, you don't scream, you don't explode. You're composed, collected, zen. But Jung would ask, is it peace or is it distance? Because some silences aren't sacred, they're survival. They're what happens when feeling becomes too dangerous. Dissociation doesn't always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like numbness, like smiling at a dinner party while your body is screaming, like not remembering how you felt, only that you felt nothing. And you call it control. But underneath that calm is a storm of emotions you weren't allowed to process. And Jung taught that what you disconnect from doesn't go away. It waits. It waits in the nervous system, in your dreams, in your silence. True calm doesn't come from suppression. It comes from integration. Not from being above your emotions, but from being with them, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts.
We love to separate, to divide the world into us and them. But Jung believed that the qualities we reject in others often reflect something unresolved in ourselves. It's not that they're wrong, it's that they mirror something you've disowned. The arrogant person, the emotional one, the lazy one, the manipulative one. You spot them immediately. You feel disgust, judgment, superiority. But ask yourself, what about them is waking something up in me? Because shadows don't just live inside you, they appear in other people too. Projection is the tool of the unconscious. When you see something you can't accept in yourself, you push it out and then hate it in someone else. It's easier to judge than to integrate, easier to point the finger than to ask, where am I like this? Jung's wisdom was radical. What irritates you most in others may be what you've buried deepest in yourself, and facing that is the beginning of maturity. You avoid intense people, emotional people, people who are messy, vulnerable, raw. And you tell yourself it's about energy, vibes, drama. But what if Jung was right, and what you avoid is just another mirror? Maybe you avoid people who cry because you were taught that crying is weak. Maybe you avoid conflict because you were punished for speaking up. Maybe you avoid depth because yours was never welcomed. The avoidance isn't protection, it's a pattern. You didn't abandon parts of yourself because you wanted to. You did it because you had to survive, to belong. But the cost was wholeness. And now, anyone who reminds you of those unacceptable parts feels dangerous. But healing isn't sterile. It's messy, it's loud, it's emotional. And the people who scare you most might just be showing you who you were before the world told you to shut it down.
You've been told to fight your darkness, to fix it, suppress it, rise above it. But Jung flipped that script. The shadow isn't a monster. It's a map, a guide, a messenger. The parts you buried are not there to destroy you. They're there to complete you. The rage you fear, it's asking for boundaries. The grief you hide, it's trying to restore meaning. The shame, it's pointing to places where you learned to abandon yourself. You're not being haunted, you're being invited to look, to listen, to feel. Jung taught that the shadow holds the gold, that the very traits you've rejected may be your greatest strengths, distorted by trauma. Sensitivity becomes intuition, anger becomes clarity, fear becomes courage when integrated. So stop trying to silence the shadow. Instead, follow it. It knows where the real you is buried. You had a voice once, clear, loud, curious, but then came the corrections, the shaming, the mocking, and slowly that voice got quieter. You became agreeable, adaptable, safe, and Jung would say that was the day you stopped being yourself. This voice didn't die, it retreated. It became the whisper you hear at 3 a.m., the ache when you say yes but mean no, the lump in your throat when you want to scream but smile instead. It's still there, waiting for permission to speak again. Reclaiming that voice is terrifying. It might disrupt your relationships. It might ruin your perfect image. It might bring back memories you buried. But that voice is your lifeline. Without it, you are a character in someone else's script. You don't need to scream. You just need to start. Start by listening. Then speak, even if your voice shakes, especially if it shakes.
Pretending to be okay. Pretending to be over it. Pretending to be who they want you to be. Jung saw this pretense as a disease of the soul, a slow disconnection from the self in the name of survival. But healing can't happen in pretense. Healing begins where performance ends. When you admit, I'm not fine, when you let the tears come, when you drop the role and let the real you, raw, unsure, unfiltered, step into the light. Most people don't need more advice. They need permission. Permission to feel, to fall apart, to not have it all together. Jungian psychology isn't about perfection. It's about integration, about holding the pain and the joy in the same breath. So if you're tired, stop pretending. Your shadow already knows the truth. All that's left is for you to join it. You've spent years avoiding it, covering it with success, drowning it in distraction. but the pain remains, buried like a seed. And Jung believed that within that pain is not weakness, but wisdom. The moment that broke you wasn't the end of you. It was the birthplace of your depth, your insight, your empathy, your ability to see others. Pain doesn't just wound, it shapes. And the truth hidden inside it, that's what makes you real. But you can't access it by bypassing the grief. You have to sit in it. Let it open you. Let it show you who you became to survive and who you might become to heal. Your truth isn't found in the light. It's in the place you've been too afraid to go. And once you go there, once you let that pain speak, it turns into power. Look at a child. They laugh loudly, cry freely, dance without rhythm. They are unfiltered being. Shame doesn't exist until it's introduced. Until someone says, "Don't be like that. That's too much. You're embarrassing." And a new belief is born. I'm wrong. Jung understood that shame is not inherent, it's learned. It's passed down through families, systems, cultures. And once it enters you, it doesn't just sit in your mind, it embeds in your body. You start shrinking, numbing, apologizing for existing. But here's the truth. Your shame isn't yours. It was given to you by people who hadn't made peace with their own. And healing begins when you return it, not through blame, but through truth. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not wrong for being who you are. You were just made to believe that. And now you get to unlearn it. Thoughts race. They contradict. They spiral. And often you believe them. I'm a failure. I'm not enough. I'll never change. But Jung taught that thoughts are not the self. They are visitors, shadows, echoes, not facts. The mind is a storyteller. It creates narratives based on fear, memory, conditioning. And the more you identify with the story, the smaller your life becomes. But there is a space inside you, a deeper awareness that observes without judgment. That space is not reactive. It is not afraid. It does not shrink under pressure. It's where your truth lives, beneath the noise. And the moment you realize you are not the chaos, you are the one witnessing it, everything changes. You can't always stop the thoughts, but you can stop believing every one of them, especially the ones that try to keep you small. You scroll, you eat, you binge, you work, you talk about everything except the thing that matters. You call it coping, but Jung would call it avoidance, a way to escape the confrontation that healing demands. Numbing is not neutral, it has a cost. Every time you suppress the discomfort, the shadow expands. It waits in the silence between your distractions. It grows in the gaps where you pretend you're okay, and eventually, it leaks. The breakdown, the panic attack, the sudden rage. These aren't failures, they're signals. Your unconscious is trying to reach you through the very emotions you've been running from. So the next time you reach for the escape, pause. Ask, what am I unwilling to feel right now? That answer is where the work begins. You think ignoring it will make it go away. That if you stay busy, stay strong, stay positive, the darkness will fade. But Jung taught that what you resist persists, and what you avoid will silently run your life. Avoidance is seductive. It feels like protection, but it creates paralysis. Your growth halts. Your relationships stagnate. Your inner life dulls. Because the part of you that you're afraid to face is the same part that holds your next breakthrough. You don't integrate the shadow by reading about it. You face it. In the mirror, in therapy, in confession, in stillness. And it's terrifying until it isn't. Because when you look at the monster, you often find a wounded child. Safety isn't found in hiding. It's found in honesty. You've been taught to fight your flaws, to silence the critic, to conquer the fear. But Jung taught that wholeness doesn't come from destruction, it comes from integration. You don't need to kill the darkness, you need to bring it home. Your anger, your jealousy, your despair, they're not enemies, they're exiled messengers. They carry information about your needs, your wounds, your boundaries, and until you welcome them, they will sabotage you from the shadows. Integration is not excusing bad behavior, it's owning it. It's saying, yes, this is part of me, and now I choose how to work with it. That's not weakness, it's mastery. Light doesn't conquer darkness, it includes it. This entire time you've been running from pain, from truth, from parts of yourself that felt too heavy to hold. And maybe it kept you alive, but it didn't make you whole. And Jung's ultimate truth is this: healing begins when you stop. When you turn around and face what you've avoided. When you sit with the discomfort instead of escaping it. When you listen to the voice you tried to silence. That's the beginning of real transformation. It won't be easy, it won't be fast, but it will be real. Because running only gets you further from the self you were always meant to become. Stop running. Sit, feel, integrate. That's how the shadow turns into strength.